Well, good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock, so I think we can make a start. Well, welcome, and I hope you're all keeping well. I'm delighted to welcome all of you to tonight's technique class, and we have with us the wonderful Alison Kinder to talk about bow technique. Ali read music at Oxford University and then studied the viol at Trinity College of Music. She's a founding member of Chelsea's Consort of Vowels and plays opposite me in the consort, usually. If you've not checked her YouTube channel, please do so. There are over 70 teaching videos there of all kinds, tips and demonstrations of all sorts for the violet gamba. So if you are hungry for more information on technique from Ali after tonight's session, do check out her YouTube channel as well as the Violet Gamba Society website, where you can see this and other films again through YouTube links over there. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Ali.
Thanks, Ibby. Greetings, everybody, and thank you for joining us on your Friday evening when I'm sure there are other things you could be doing than thinking about speaking with the bow, but it's nice to see you all. And as Ibby said, we're going to be thinking about articulation, and particularly with reference to words. I'm always very jealous of singers because they have words and it just gives them such a lot of information, not just about the meaning of what they're singing, but actually the shapes of individual notes because of the letters that make up their words. They just have such a lot of information that as instrumentalists we spend a lot of time thinking, well, I wonder what I should do with this phrase, or I wonder how I should shape that note. And singers just, I feel like they're one step further ahead. So I get a bit obsessed by words at times, and today we're going to look particularly at the starts of words, so articulating the beginnings of things, maybe worrying less about the remaining syllables, so we're going to look particularly at the beginnings. And I think quite often that lots of people are good at thinking, well, okay, there are words that start with really crisp consonants, so I can start that word with a really crisp articulation, I can start that note with a real kind of ping or almost accent at the beginning. And then there are words that start much more gently, so I can start those really, really softly and kind of creep in and be a bit more subtle about it. And then we leave it at that. And I reckon that actually there are many, many, many more possibilities. There's a much more subtle spectrum of sounds that are available. So even just with consonants at the beginning of the word, if you start the word like toast with a really clean t at the beginning, but marmalade that might go on your toast has a completely different type of sound and a completely different type of articulation for the beginning. But then you get the same letter that can come out in different ways. So the A that starts apple is a completely different type of sound to the A that starts amen. So if there are 26 letters in our alphabet, you can start a word with any of them, and some of those letters can have different sounds themselves. I think that gives us an enormous range of possibilities for vocalised articulation. Just to get the ball rolling and to hopefully amuse people to start off, if you're all set up ready to play, just relax a minute. I'm going to play you a very short but very silly little radio clip for which I have to thank Alison for sending this to me several months ago and making me laugh very much. It's just topical about words and other things. Let me just sort out my screen sharing. It's about 2.5 minutes long. I hope you might appreciate it. It just sets the tone a bit. Here we go.
Good evening. As COVID-19 infections remain high at home and around the world, scientists have found that the virus is being spread not only by coughs, but also by people talking to each other.
Yeah.
Studies show that consonants project the virus for much greater distances than vowels.
That's true.
And certain consonants, the so-called plosive sounds,
Plosives.
are worst of all.
Worst of all. You can get on
Each
us all the
time
time
a
for that.
person makes the sound p, t, or k,
Okay.
they can project the virus up to 3 times further than when they use softer consonants, such as f.
That was a high school project that
Oula.
found that out.
Based on this new evidence, the government is introducing new rules in stages to make people's speech less dangerous
Yes.
and slow the spread
Speech
of
rules.
COVID-19.
I knew this was coming.
Yeah.
Announcing the new rules, Health Secretary Matt Hancock said, during the first stage, or Tier 1, the consonant p will be banned and must always be replaced with the softer sound f.
Yes.
Anyone speaking to other people in a public place will have to stop using the plosive sound. Failure to do so could lead to a fine or even prison. The whole population, even members of Parliament, will all have to play their part in this. After a period of a few weeks, we will move to Tier 2. Tier 1 rules will continue to apply. In addition, the sound t will be banned and must be replaced by the sound n.
No.
Although this may cause some initial confusion, for example, Nietzsche's in schools will face challenges when Nietzscheing the Nenheim's navel, we are confident any problems will be temporary, and measures under Near Nu will help learn the night of this pandemic. After a further brief period, we will bring in Near 3.
Near 3?
The rules under Nears 1 and Nu will continue, with the addition of the sound k being banned, to be replaced by l. We have considered these measures carefully, in line with recommendations from professors at Cambridge University.
Cambridge!
These new rules will apply not only to English, but also to other languages spoken in this country, including Nerlish, Polish, Portuguese and Italian. I urge people to neep narm and narry on. Together, we now conquer the COVID pandemic and return to normality in no time at all. Thank you.
Apologies, I do promise to raise the tone after that, but I just thought it actually quite nicely illustrates that some sounds are much more plosive, much more dramatic than others, and it just seemed sort of topical, so it sets the scene for the evening. We're going to spend quite a bit of time experimenting. I'm going to ask a lot of questions and then I might not answer many of them. I'm hoping you might answer them yourselves. But the 2 things we'll bear in mind as we go through the evening are question 1. If singers have all of those dozens of options for articulation at the starts of their notes, do we, as viol players, have all of the same possibilities? If they have that wider range of sounds, can we also make all of those sounds at the beginnings of our notes? And question 2, should we? Is it possible that we can make all of those sounds? And secondly, is it desirable? Is it something we should be aiming for? So there's going to be lots of experimentation. You won't need any music. If you've got a viol lying around, you might want to test some things out. But we're going to use one rhythm for most of the evening. I might extend it, add a couple of syllables on later. But the rhythm for most of the evening is going to be dotted minim, crotchet minim. So 1, 2, 3. Dotted minim, crotchet minim. 1, 2 and 3. I'm playing a C. This is Zoom. You can choose. You can play a C if you'd like to sound harmonious. You could play something else that sounded harmonious. If you'd like to play a B natural against my C, I really don't mind because I can't hear you. But the rhythm, dotted minim, crotchet minim. Let's just test it out. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2 and 3. Couple more times just to get the hang of our rhythm. I can see people picking up vowels. Just give you a chance to get yourselves sorted. Just test out that rhythm on a C or anything you'd like to put with a C. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. For the moment, I'm starting it on a forward bow, and we're going to do that at all times unless we change our mind. So that's our rhythm. Can we attach a word to that rhythm? And the first word is Gloria. So now that you know the word, does it change the way that you play that rhythm? If that rhythm is now the word Gloria, does it change the way you play it? Let's find out. 1, 2, 3. Did it make any difference, the fact that you knew what the word was? Did it change the way you played the rhythm? Did it change the way you articulated the very first note? I put much more what you might call ping at the beginning of the note. Oh, I can see her. Ibby, can you keep an eye on the chat?
Yep, certainly.
As things pop in, and just maybe shout if anything needs adding in. Otherwise, I get distracted by it popping in and out.
I'm not sure the current comment is meant to be serious.
You can judge and share the comment if it looks like it might be serious. Excellent. So let's say the word Gloria and think about the sound at the beginning. Gloria. Can you say it like an operatic bass on the Covent Garden stage trying to fill the entire opera house? Think lots of hair and definitely a bass. Gloria. There's a lot of sound at the start of the word that doesn't have any pitch to it. You can't sing a pitched note to the G of Gloria. You could maybe attach a pitch to the L just about, but the best bit of that note doesn't come until you get to the O of Gloria. But there's a lot of sound and a lot of activity, a lot of stuff happening before you get to the pitch. Can we do that with the bow? Can we try it? Open-ended questions for now. You're free to experiment, and then I'm going to make some suggestions. So bearing that in mind, 1, 2, 3, let's try it once more. 1, 2, 3. So the gl at the beginning, the g and the l together are very active, very energetic. Actually, if we're honest, it's not the most elegant set of sounds, is it? All of that together. Is there a viol playing equivalent? Can we get an active, energetic, potentially not very elegant, unpitched sound at the start of our note? Can we experiment? So let's put your bow on the string. Can you add pressure to the hair of the bow with the middle finger of your right hand? So the hair of the bow is flexing, moving, because of the middle finger on the bow. But if you look at the string that you're playing, can you see the string move? Can you see the string flex as a result of this finger on your bowing hand flexing? So it's almost as though you're pulling the string to one side, ready to start a pizzicato sound, but you're pulling it from 8 inches away over here. Do you dare to start a note from that position? So all the pressure on, string moved to the side under a huge amount of tension. Do you dare to start a note? Let's try it. Zoom, nobody can hear you. What happens? It's a terrible sound, isn't it? I told you there was going to be plenty of experimenting to do this evening. But I wonder if that is the viol playing equivalent. There's a huge amount of activity, a huge amount of explosion of articulation, but before we get any actual pitch. is that the vowel playing equivalent of that consonant at the start of Gloria? Can we refine it? And can we start the note with absolute clarity and bite? But can we get to the pitch? So I want you to experiment with what is the maximum amount of pressure you can put on with your right hand, but still get a note that has pitch in it eventually, but risk that kind of splat that you get at the beginning before it starts. The kind of sound you would usually apologise for making in a consonant. Let's just experiment. We'll try it a few times. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. What happens if you move your bow quicker? What does it do to that sound? 1, 2, 3. Does it add excitement to the articulation, but do you lose some of the definition at the beginning? Let's try it. So you're still aiming for the crispiest articulation you can get, but let's go for extra speed. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Have you worked out the optimum combination of speed, of pressure here, where you can get a really exciting, really explosive, risking quite an inelegant sound at the beginning, but that actually just has that real explosion and real excitement at the beginning of the note. Now I've been deliberately starting that on a forward bow every time, because let's be honest, it's easier, isn't it, to start that kind of articulation going that way. But what if the Gloria was part of a longer sentence? What if the words were Gloria in excelsis Deo, and we had Gloria in excelsis Deo, and the Gloria came beautifully the right way round, but then we'd get in excelsis Deo. What if we decide that actually we can't live with that and we'd rather bow the Gloria backwards, so all the in excelsis comes out the right way round? Can we get the same articulation that we've just worked out with a forward bow? Can we get the same effect but starting backwards? So we're back to our Gloria, but bowing it starting on a back bow, because it's useful to be able to do these things both ways. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Risk making a terrible sound. Risk it even more. It's amazing how far you can push it, I think, before the sound really does crack. I find that if I start towards the heel and I've put lots of pressure on with this middle finger, that the tip of my bow starts waving about slightly uncontrollably and bouncing around, and I run the risk of just getting a really uncontrolled bounce at the beginning when I'm at the heel. So I've got my ring finger also just coming up underneath the hair to take some of the weight and some of the pressure. It just steadies this end of the bow a little bit. So the middle finger doing making all the effort, making all the articulation, but your ring finger just helping to stop some of the bouncing that's going on up here. Let's try it again on a back bow a few times. Risk it. I can't hear you. It doesn't matter if it squeaks. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's quite a freeing thing to be on Zoom, isn't it, and know that nobody can hear what you're doing and just work out where the parameters are, making sounds that you might never want to hear yourself make again. So hold that thought for a second. Same rhythm, I'm going to stick to the same note, but I'm going to change the word, and the word is now sushipe. The same rhythm, but the word is now sushipe. Does it make any difference to the way we bow it? Starting, let's go back to our forward bow again. Sushipe, without me suggesting anything. 1, 2, 3. Sushipe. 1, 2, 3. What difference did it make? Same rhythm. On the page, that would look the same, wouldn't it? If that was written out musically, I've changed nothing. I've kept the same note, the same rhythm. It would look identical. The only thing we've changed is the word. What difference did it make to the way that you bowed? I took all of that articulation, all of that bite, all of that crunch off the beginning. Let's think about the word in a bit more detail though. So just say the word sushipe and think about it. Sushipe. We've got a sound at the beginning, again, that has no pitch. You can't pitch the s. You can't sing a pitch on that. You can't pitch until you get to the ooh shipe. But it's got nothing like the energy and the activity that there was in the g of the Gloria. What are we going to do with that unpitched sound? We could try and get rid of it as quickly as possible. Can you say sushipe and try and get rid of the first S as quickly as possible and get onto the proper vowel sound? So sushipe as fast as you can to get rid of the S, so that you're quick onto the U. It's possible, isn't it? But I think it sounds slightly ridiculous. You've introduced a real energy at the beginning because you're whizzing through that consonant trying to get to the best bit of the note. And I think you've lost the beauty of that word is that this glides absolutely imperceptibly into the vowel sound. And if you take it away, we've lost that. We've completely changed the shape. So it's important vocally, I think, to keep this at the beginning and not apologise for it and try and get it out of the way as fast as possible. So can we imitate it with the bow? Is it possible? Can we get a sound that is whistly and whispery but unpitched? I don't believe you if you've never made this sound before. It's probably easier on lower, thicker gut strings, but pick, I'm still on my C. Can you move your bow across the string? So you are playing the string, but there's no pitch, there's just that gut kind of whistling, hissing sound of a gut string with no actual pitch to it. I find this quite hard. I think it's easier on the lower strings, the thicker strings. What happens if you take your bow nearer the bridge? Can you get that unpitched whistling sound? What happens if you come further away? What happens if you change the speed? Is that our viol playing equivalent of the s at the beginning of sushipe? So can you tell, if you start with that sound, can you tell as you add pressure and you add speed and you add sound and pitch into that note, do you know at exactly what point the hissing and whistling is going to stop and the pitch is going to start? Do you know where is the point at which you get the actual pitch? Can you experiment and find out? So starting from absolutely nothing, can you move completely imperceptibly into a pitched sound? And can you control it, or does it happen slightly accidentally? Can you try it an octave lower than where you are currently? Have you got another octave to go? Or if you're already at the bottom, can you try it an octave higher? So we should be ending up with a note that starts from nothing. It starts from a kind of hissing nothingness and gradually moves into pitch. Can we try playing the word? This is the whole word, sushipe. I've stuck to my C. I want to hear the S and the vowel. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And potentially, when you're the first person playing in a consort, that's the kind of sound that when you start a note like that, you say, oh, sorry, I'll play that again, because it wasn't a very clear beginning. You say, I'll do this again. But I think it's good to experiment with, why do we get these sounds? How do we get them? Can we get them deliberately? And if we know how we get them, we could arrange maybe not to get them by accident if we know how they work. So like the Gloria then, what if the sushipe came in a longer sentence and we didn't start it on a forward bow? What if it went sushipe domine and we wanted the domine to be more important? Could we start that on a back bow, the sushipe, because domine might be more important. Let's try starting it backwards. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's often harder, I think, doing these things on a back bow. It's harder, I think, to start quietly than it is to start with energy when you're at the heel. For the same reasons as before, you've got all this tip of the bow waving about and adding sound, adding weight into your note. So again, my ring finger is doing more work than my middle finger is on the bow. I'm doing more work to take the weight off. I'm doing more work to be playing on. I used to have a violin teacher who would say play on half a hair, and I'm having to work quite hard to do that at the heel because the natural weight of the bow connects you to the string. Can we try it again on a back bow? Just make sure you're really supporting the hair so you don't get any kind of crunch at the beginning. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. See lots of very concentrated faces. So we had 2 questions at the beginning. I said we were going to try and find out whether it is possible for us to make these sounds on the viol, but the second question was, should we make these sounds on the viol? So can we make the gl at the start of Gloria, can we make that really explosive, energetic, unpitched sound at the start of the Gloria? Yes, of course we can. Can we make this hissing sound at the start of sushipe? Yes, we can. Should we? The next time we play vocal music, is your consort going to be full of hissing and fizzing and squawking sounds at the beginning of things, and you're going to say, well, Ali said we should make all of these sounds at the beginnings of our words? I think this is quite an interesting concept because we spend a lot of time playing vocal music, or I spend a lot of time playing vocal music and trying to sound like a singer, trying to sound like the voice. But I think one of the interesting things is that if you're singing unpitched sounds at the starts of words, and you put them, if you're, let's imagine we're being conducted, and you start to say Gloria on the beat, by the time we hear the pitch of the vowel sound, you're late. If we go 1, 2, 3, glor, by the time the O starts, you're half an hour after the first beat, so you're late. So as a singer, you have to start your articulation early so that your pitched sound comes on time. Otherwise, you're late. As an instrumentalist, if we start to play before the beat, we're early. So that's a problem, isn't it? If we're going to try and imitate the vocal sounds, I think as a singer, you have to begin early to be ready for the beat when it comes. But I think as an instrumentalist, if we employ that, that's very risky. We're going to get into all sorts of trouble for starting early. So what are we going to do? And I wonder if the solution is quite a boring middle ground thing of just saying, well, we're going to do a kind of miniature version of, we have got all of those possibilities, but if you're playing with singers, maybe it's the job of the singer to begin those kinds of articulations early, and maybe it's our job to be on time. But maybe it's our job also to start our note in the manner in which the singer would start it. We just don't have as much time as they do. I throw it out as a challenge that the next time you play vocal music, either as a completely instrumental consort or with singers, that you experiment with some of that stuff, that you take a few risks and you just see what happens, particularly with those unpitched sounds at the start of words. We're going to look at some different types of words in a minute that don't have that same unpitched articulation at the beginning. But I just wonder, are there any thoughts, any questions about what we've looked at in that little section? The idea of starting notes where the word is an unpitched sound at the beginning, and what we might do with it. Hoping it might just be food for thought, that you might feel free to experiment the next time you play. Nobody's going to dare to ask questions. We're only a small group, so if I meant to say this at the beginning, actually, because we're a small group, if I say things that don't make sense, or if I don't give you enough time to experiment with something, please just pitch in and say, because we are a small group and it's fine to question as we go along. So let's look at a different example then. We'll keep the rhythm, dotted minim, crotchet minim. Can we change the notes? So that I'm going to start on a C like I did, but fall to B flat and A. C, B flat, A. Same rhythm. 1, 2 and 3. And then I'm going to extend the last note. So we might be thinking in 4. Shall we just try that out? Starting on a C, B flat, A, and we'll think in 4. 3, 4. 1, 2 and 3, 4. Let's do that once more. 3, 4. One more time. 3, 4. And the word is amen. Just hear somebody not muted. Who's that? I think that's it. Great. The word is amen. Does that affect the way that we play it? The word is amen. Let's try it. 3, 4. Once more. 3, 4. Let's think about that as a word. So, amen. It's a clean start, isn't it? There's no sliding in from a s into the amen at the beginning. It's a clean start straight away on a pitch. But there's nothing energetic about it like there was for the gl at the beginning of Gloria. So we need a good quality, resonant, beautiful, pitched sound right from the very first thing you play. No splat, no splurt, no gut string hiss on the way in, no bounce, no hiccup, no nothing. Just the most beautiful sound you've got right from the off. Not too much to ask for then. Here we go. 3, 4. Amen. Shall we try it once more? 3, 4. time. 3, 4. So you've got to be really certain, haven't you, that you're in the right place on the string in terms of distance from the bridge. You've got to be really certain that you've got the right amount of pressure on, because if there's too much it will squawk, and if there's not enough it will hiss before it gets going. And that the speed of the bow is going in a way that allows you to make an instantly resonant sound. So we're going to do the word a few times, and I just want you to change each of those things at a time. I'll tell you the order we're going to do it in. So you're going to change one variable as we go and see if there is a better quality sound than the one you get at the moment. So just play where you were for a second. 3, 4. Can you speed the bow up? What happens if you're quicker? Maybe even quicker. What if you slow the bow down? Mine didn't speak that time. Once more. Can you find your optimum speed? What about the distance from the bridge? If you went a centimetre or 2 nearer the bridge, what difference would it make? 3, 4. Risk it another centimetre? Maybe you're too close. What if you come back a bit? What if you come back a bit further? Can you find your optimum place to play? Stick in the optimum place. What if you add more pressure to the bow with your right hand? More pressure. 3, 4. We're trying not to get a crunch at the beginning. More pressure. What if you take it off again? Take off even more pressure. Mine doesn't speak anymore. What's your optimum combination? Just want your best quality sound now. I'm hoping you found it. I'm hoping you might have found that you weren't quite as near the bridge as you thought you were. Or you thought you were moving at the optimum speed, but actually when you sped up a little bit, the sound was better. Or you thought that you were moving at the absolute peak velocity, and by slowing down a bit, your sound was slightly better. I think it's worth experimenting with those things. But I also think that when we start a note and we want it to be instantly beautiful, if we're too worried about starting the beginning of the note, we get really stressed about making a beautiful sound. Does that sound familiar? Do people worry about that? They think, right, I've got to start. My turn to start, and it's got to sound beautiful. Got to get it right. Okay, ready, ready, ready. Okay, here we go, ready. I'm going to start. Any second now, I'm going to... And you start with this terrible bounce or crunch at the beginning. We've all been there. So I think there are several questions to ask, aren't there, in this? If we start with our bow on the string and we're poised and ready to go, there's definite tension in there, and the first thing we're going to hear when we move our bow is a release of that tension, and it's bound to give us a really crisp, clean articulation at best and a horrendous squawk at worst, isn't it? That is the risk of being on the string ready to go. If we start off the string and we start miles away and we come flying in with a great sweep, there's a real risk of just clattering the string and being totally out of control because you're not quite sure where the string is. So I reckon this is a really good example of the kind of note where it's almost less important what you do with the note itself, but it's more important the way that you play the breath before the note starts. I'm aware that that's a completely ridiculous thing to say. How can you play a breath before a note starts? But what I mean is that the way that we prepare physically to play a note sets us up for the kind of quality of note that's going to come out. So I would prepare for this kind of note with a back bow that was at the speed and with the absolute intention that I've just learnt gives me my best sound. So I would be preparing for the amen by actually bowing the breath before it at the speed and the imagined pressure that I'm about to start that note with. Can you risk it? So I'm going to count you in. 2, 3, 4. And I'd like you to use at least the 4 and potentially the 3 as well of the counting to actually physically set yourself up going backwards with the same intention that you're going to play going forwards. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. Can we try that again? 2, 3, 4. So the idea is that you've actually started moving and preparing, and I think actually I've probably started the forward bow before. I don't do the breath on a back bow and then kind of catch the forward bow on the way in. But I think the whole movement, the whole thought, the whole preparation, the whole aim is in the style that I'm about to play in. Let's try that once more. 2, 3, 4. Does it help to think not just about how am I going to play that note, but how do I physically play the breath that comes before it? I think that is a really helpful, particularly for things that start with pitch and want immediate good sound and not a crunchy articulation at the beginning. What if, for the sake of it, let's bow it on a back bow? Just because in real life things do not always come out bowed the way round that we might like. This is the amen bowed backwards. 2, 3, 4. Once more. 2, 3, 4. And I reckon if it's ever your job to lead a consort, and it's not vocal music even, but it's your job to play that opening theme or to bring the rest of your consort in, the way you give your preparation, it's not a question of thinking, okay, is everybody with me? I've got to give an upbeat and then start. All you're doing is preparing yourself to play your note. And in doing so, it's amazing how visible that is to the rest of your consort. So think about your own preparation in time and preparation in the style that you want, and just take the rest of your consort with you. Never stress about, okay, is everybody there? Are we ready? Got to, huge upbeat, head back, ready to go. None of that. Prepare it, play it beautifully, take everybody with you. Can I add a note onto our rhythm? I've added an F at the bottom. Just try that out. 3, 4. Once more. 3, 4. One more time. 3, 4. So our word for that is going to be Alleluia. Does it change the way you play it? 2, 3, four. Hallelujah. Can't sing and play at the same time. Here we go. 3, 4. I think we're getting quite subtle in our difference here. The difference between, remember we were thinking about beginnings, we're not thinking so much about the rest of the word. The difference between the Alleluia and Amen still comes in immediately with pitch. Let's not go for a Handel Alleluia chorus, Hallelujah, or the sort of sound I might make if a large spider descended next to the computer and Hallelujah. Let's not go for one of those. That's a pet hate of mine, people singing the Alleluia chorus like they've just stood on somebody's toe. Let's think English choral, maybe Bird or Tallis type Alleluia. But it's got a different momentum, I think, to an Amen. So an Amen is a winding down, is a dissipating of energy at the end of something. But an Alleluia's got a slightly more cheerful intention, hasn't it? There's something different between Amen and Alleluia. I think it's just in energy. So I wonder whether we might just do it with speed of bow. So rather than... what if we just slightly more energy at the beginning for an Alleluia? Let's try it. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. It's just got a slightly more perky. I haven't put an accent on the beginning. If you're starting to get... I don't know how much the accents come out on Zoom. I never know quite how well it translates. If you're starting to get a real bite at the beginning, that's definitely not what we're after, is it? And if you've gone back to the indefined sound at the beginning, that's not what we're after either. Just a slightly quicker. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. What about the preparation that we make for that one? You can't be quite as languid about it as you were on the Amen. 2, 3, 4. Let's prepare it again. 2, 3, 4. Yeah. I'm not an advocate of waving around dramatically while you play. Lots of swaying from side to side, lots of really dramatic movements. But I do think it should be completely impossible to sit still while you play. I think if you're not investing at least some physical preparation for a note and some physical carrying through, you're making your life extremely difficult. So if you tend to be a very static player, you might just risk just the breathing in at the beginning. The number of people who breathe at the beginning and then don't breathe again until they get to the end of a piece is quite astonishing. Just hanging on for dear life. That physical freedom to articulate notes, I think, is really crucial. I've got half an eye on the time. Have we got time for one more? I think we probably have. So what about, we've had really explosive consonants at the beginnings of things. We've had things that start straight away with pitch. What about some softer consonants? What if our word was natus, as in puenatus? There's a n. You can pitch it, can't you, the consonant at the beginning of that? Natus. But it's not the best part of the sound until you get to the vowel. What difference would that make? Let's stick to a C. And bow. Natus. Just try it out. 1, 2. Natus. Once more. 1, 2. done to the beginning of that, if anything, that's different to the R at the start of Amen? What have you done to put the na rather than Amen? Natus. What have you done? I think I've just slowed down a little bit. So the first thing you hear is maybe not the freest sound. It's pitched straight away, but the sound gets freer, possibly just by speeding the bow up very slightly. What I absolutely don't want to hear is a whoosh in the middle, because that's really inelegant. That makes me feel seasick. But I wonder whether just that slightly less free beginning to natus. Let's try it once more. 1, 2, no. 1, 2. What kind of preparation are you making? 1, 2. I think it might be similar if that word was morte. That's another, it's a vocalised sound, isn't it? More, the pitch is there straight away, but it doesn't have quite the same definite start as an R at the start of Amen. So, I don't propose to work through the entire alphabet during the course of the evening. What I'm hoping is that it's just given you some things to think about. I think sometimes it's really helpful to just take away the sheet music, to not be reading anything, but to spend some time where all there is you, a viol, and this funny old stick that is responsible for absolutely everything we do in terms of articulation. And actually, you know, it's a piece of tree with some hair on it, and we have to try and make it do absolutely everything. So I think sometimes it's jolly useful to just experiment. What are the sounds that are available to me? And then which of those am I going to use? The chances are that you've made some sounds this evening that you never want to hear yourself make again. And that's completely fine. It's all about finding out what the options are so that you can narrow them down and make your choices. I hope it's given you some things to think about, that some of them might be useful for taking away and thinking more on. I wonder if there are any questions or just observations from anybody, any words that you wish we'd covered, any, I don't know, observations from the last time you can remember playing with singers. When has that happened in living memory? Otherwise,
Ali, I'm just thinking the natus example.
Yeah.
It seemed to me that it worked best starting with the N closer to the bridge and then moving up for the vowel.
So you went closer to start it and then away. I find if I'm closer to the bridge, I get more of the whistling and slightly less of the pitch.
Yeah, maybe not that close.
I'd be tempted to do it the other way round, I think, and sit just behind the best quality sound and move into it that way rather than the other way round. But I agree that a process of moving and varying the distance from the bridge is definitely one to consider. I would worry about starting nearer the bridge and coming away rather than going the other way round, I think. But the principle of travel is definitely one worth thinking about. Intentional travel. Not
Yes.
You know, miles from the top string, oh dear, I bowed my knee type travel. But deliberate
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Travel is definitely a good thing. Yeah, thank you. Any other thoughts, observations? People thinking, please can I go home now? John's waving at me.
Thanks, Ali. It's just on the business of how near the bridge to play. I wonder if it's worth remembering Mace. I've just found him.
Go on.
For consort use, play nearer the bridge than when you play alone, which although it be not so sweet, yet it is more lusty, and that little roughness is lost in the crowd. So likewise you may do if you play at a great distance from the auditors, for the same reason, for the roughness will be lost when it's come to them. But if you be to play in very near your auditors, especially unto curious ears, play a little too far off rather than too near, for by that means your play will be the more sweet, etc.
Beautiful.
So I think that idea of being afraid of making rough sounds is something that we're all often conscious of, but Mace is saying, don't worry about it. You're the only person that's really aware of it, and in the consoles, and certainly to listeners outside, they're not going to hear that grittiness at the beginning of the note. But without it, you don't get the definition. I think that's very much the point you've been making, isn't it?
It's really crucial, isn't it, that we're not afraid of making terrible sounds. We're so trained to apologise when we do it. And I think also, if you listen, I don't know, like my favourite singers, the singers that tell the best stories, so occasionally they sacrifice the quality of their sound for the sake of the story they're trying to sell, and those are the singers that I want to listen to, rather than the singers that make the most beautiful sound all of the time. And it is a risk, isn't it, to be prepared to do that. I think the same instrumentally, but again, advantage of being on Zoom, you can take that risk and nobody can hear. But I dare you to take that risk when you're not on Zoom. Take it when you're in your consort and see what happens. You can blame me. Thanks, John. Any other thoughts?
Hi, Gerald. Just to say, how do you approach it where it's, because we worked with words tonight where they've got long vowel sounds, but if you've got something like drop or spot or something that's a short vowel sound, how do you try and combine that initial articulation there?
With a short, yeah, thank you. That's a thought, isn't it? So a word that starts with a consonant definition at the beginning, but where we're not then moving into a long vowel sound. I reckon that's probably got quite a lot to do with speed of bow, hasn't it? That if you're setting up a note that's going to go on, you're setting up with a certain slowness of bow that allows a really good quality sound. But if you're after shorter notes, I think what I'm actually doing is playing the articulation and actually pretty much not playing the rest of the note. I'm playing the start, and then the bow is still on the string, but I haven't really got any pressure on that at all. I've set the string ringing, and I'm just letting it carry on. Those words tend to be shorter anyway, don't they? We're talking about notes that are shorter in length, so you've got less time to hang about on them anyway. I think I'm just setting the string ringing and letting the string make the rest of the vowel sound. Does that answer in any way? Whereas I think if the vowel is longer, I'm playing it. I am making my sound. If it's shorter, I've stopped making the sound by there. It's just what was left over after I set it going. Has anybody else got any other? Does that sound plausible? I'm looking at a screen full of viol players. They're all keeping obediently quiet here. I mean, feel free to chip in with. I wouldn't do it like that. I'd do it like this.
I've got a comment, Ali.
Excellent. Go on.
Well, it's just something I've been thinking about quite a lot, and I've been trying to incorporate into my playing, and I've just discovered that I can't play in time. I mean, one spends a lifetime just trying to be precise playing in time, and then suddenly one realizes that actually one's got to allow some time to prepare for this thing, and then it just completely ruins all that you've practiced all this time. So I think I'm never on the note in time enough, because I've always got to prepare it, and preparing a note takes time, especially if you've got to formulate a sort of particular kind of consonant. That will take time, and you're not always playing on the same string. In fact, you're leaping about here and there. And if you're going from a low string onto a high string across 2, 3, 4 strings, and the high note starts with Gloria, that's going to take a huge amount of time, I find.
You've got to be there half an hour early, haven't
You've
you?
got to be there half an hour early, because
yeah,
you've got to get the
absolutely.
bow
Yeah.
onto the
Yeah.
top string,
Yeah.
put it there, formulate the consonant before you move the bow. So it's just an observation that it's so difficult to play in time when you've got to think about the articulation as well, which is a really important thing. I mean, I'm learning more and more that articulation is so important for expression. It's so important also, obviously, for clarity, because if you don't have a good start to the note, it can do so much, damage to the sort of ensemble, because people don't hear the start of your note, and therefore they don't hear the beat. And that sort of creates insecurity in the rhythm, etc.
Yeah, it's a real minefield, isn't it? I mean, it's a good job that our low strings are as resonant as they are, because that's where some of our time comes from for leaping up to the top and setting the top string off, that you can rely on the bottom string to keep sounding. So playing low notes really short and getting there early. But I think the other thing I think that Ibby and I and the rest of our consort has found, that we've spent the last 15 months playing to click tracks because we've had nobody else to play with. And yet we found we can't play in time. All of us have found we're completely incapable of playing in time. But we get back together and we meet for a consort rehearsal, and we're totally together. By guarantee, we're not metronomically in time. And that the physical presence of somebody else preparing their note and making their sound and making their music and taking you with them, I suspect our actual beat is slightly manoeuvrable, but we manoeuvre it together because we're in the same room. I'm a great believer in I quite often ask consorts to have a more expansive interpretation of the beat, or to be on the front foot. And I don't want it to get slower, but I do want there to be a bit more space than there currently is. And I think there's a kind of, there can be a bit of elasticity, can't there, in beat, which is totally unallowable when there's a metronome ticking away in the background. And the ability to play in time is crucial, but the ability to play together is crucial as well. And the two can kind of, there's space. You can make your space and make your time, I think. But it's been an interesting 15 months for that, I think. Learning curve for all concerned. I can see various people nodding. Are there any other thoughts or observations?
Ali.
Hello. Oh, Roxanne, hello.
Hi. Hello. Nice to see you. Hello.
Likewise.
Talking about playing in time and being prepared and whatever, then what happens when you're playing for a dancer?
Yeah. Okay, so the other thing that I've learned recently, because I've been working with some Baroque dancers, is that they do not care what notes you play. I'm worried about playing beautifully. I want to play all the notes. I want to get them all in. All they want is the downbeat.
Okay.
I could play anything else, and they genuinely wouldn't mind. The only thing they're interested in is the downbeat of every bar. And as a musician, that is very educational, because I am used to, well, I just need a bit longer to get to that string, so I'll just take a bit longer, thank you very much, and you'll just have to wait till I get there. And if you play for dancers, absolutely not. It's got to come in time.
But it's the downbeat, isn't it? So absolutely. Beat 2, 3, 4, you can. Yeah, it's got to be that
the downbeat, on time and clean. That's all they want.
Right.
That's what I've learned in the last couple of years about dancing.
So when you're bowing that, you think duh for downbeat.
Yeah, I'm just making sure I'm there, and if I'm going to sacrifice anything in the process, it's the previous note in order to get to that one.
Mm-hmm. That one. Right.
Yeah. Any other? Pat's waving. You're muted, Pat. Can you
Yes.
There
I
we
was
go.
wondering how easily it was for you all. Your massive thing that you're doing with Evelyn, Nanny, and people, and when she's doing something wonderful and separate, and then you've all got to kind of come in together, and that must be quite difficult, bearing in mind what you've just been saying.
Yeah, I think in real life it's going to be easier. I think we miss the visual cues such a lot. The visual, physical presence of the music in somebody else's being. You just can't get that from a recorded thing. So if you're recording, you just have to play in time, because there's no way that anybody else, there's no other signals for your colleagues to pick up on. I think in real life, I hope in real life, we're going to find that much easier. We haven't met for that project in real life yet, so we'll find out when we get there. But that's what we're banking on. Ibby, maybe over to you.
Well, the plan is to go into breakout rooms. This, as you know, is the bit whereby I press a magic button, and then you all will be put into groups of 4, 5, maybe 6 people. So if you do not wish to be included in the breakout rooms, you could leave the meeting now. I'm probably going to give you 30 seconds before I press the button, and we'll spend, say, 10 minutes in the breakout room just to catch up with people and have a chat.
While we do that, can I just thank Ali on behalf of everyone for a stimulating session, and lots of things to think about, and it will be interesting when we get back together playing more frequently to put some of these things into practice.
I'm going to get into all sorts of trouble. Sorry for the sound of your consort the next time you meet. Nice to see you all.
So if we're happy, so I'm going to create the breakout room, so whoever wants to remain, welcome to join us. If not, you can, of course, leave, and we'll see you next time at the end of July. Do check the website, and you will get a notification from Sue about forthcoming meetings. Thank you very much. Here are the breakout rooms.
Oh. Hi, John.
Thanks, Ibby.
Thank you.
The way you can be dropped in. Oh, hi, Ibby.
Hello.